today will start out pretty mild, kind of like yesterday, and then the temperature will decline as the day goes on. Mm-hmm. So we'll get to the full forecast coming up. We have today is the first full day of Hanukkah. Of course, over the weekend, you might have heard that President George H.W. Bush passed away, which the tributes, did you watch any of the tributes?
I did not.
Really pretty amazing. And there's also a big difference in the style of the politics of then and the politics of today.
Yeah.
Like, really a big difference. So, interesting. We'll play some audio on that coming up in a few minutes. How about Utica City FC? They won their inaugural game on Saturday night and then won their home opener on Sunday, and quite substantially, right?
Yeah, so they rallied for the win Saturday, 9-7, and then yesterday, they win like 5-2 or something? Yeah. They only gave up 2 goals, which was, I thought, impressive.
Yeah. And great crowds. The Teddy Bear Toss was held on Saturday night, New York State Teddy Bear Toss, and no score in the first period.
Yeah, no, close call.
But Utica came out quite quickly in the second period and wins the game and scores so that everybody can throw the teddy bears onto the ice.
So Scott's out on the ice. He's giving a spiel and thanking everybody and talking about the toy drive and how they help local kids. But he says toward the end, Utica College will score early and they will score often. Go UC or something like that.
Yeah.
And I could just see from where I was sitting, the Chatham bench was like, oh, yeah? So the final was 5-0, but obviously any team that comes into the Adirondack Bank Center during a Teddy Bear Toss game, I'm sure that they support all the children and all the toys and everything, but they don't want the Pioneers to score.
Yeah, and we saw that the year that they didn't score, right?
Yes, right.
And the whole game they didn't score, and the enthusiasm in the opponents, the fact that they were able to prevent them from scoring.
It's a badge of honor, especially for that goalie.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. All right, so let's get to some of the George H.W. Bush. If you recall this clip, is it going to play for me or not? I guess it's not going to play. But let's go to Rachel Sutherland standing by. The clip was just a quickie. Read my lips, no new taxes, which is a comment that came back to haunt him in his race against President Bill Clinton. Rachel Sutherland, good morning.
Hey, good morning. There's so much to talk about when you talk about former President George H.W. Bush, including his loss to President Bill Clinton. And even though that was such a hard-fought battle, he left that beautiful note to Clinton that Clinton kept, and in the remarks and the release statements from the Clintons talking about their long-lasting friendship after those days when they had to make that transition.
Yeah, they became friends. It was interesting. I saw Chris Wallace. They did a great tribute on Sunday. And I think one of the quotes I took away was that President Bush said about Bill Clinton, you just can't, I'm going to paraphrase, but you can't help yourself but to like the guy, or you find yourself to forgive him for some reason. And Clinton has that personality, and of all people to become friends with him, you wouldn't expect it to have been George H.W. Bush.
Yeah, and there's a lot of bipartisan praise, of course, for the former president for 41. Former President Barack Obama, in a statement, said that the former president was able to really bring about the end of the Cold War without firing a single shot. I thought that was pretty impressive as a statement, and tributes coming in from around the world. And all this is happening is just in a few hours here. The body of the former president will leave Ellington Field in Houston, Texas, and arrive here expected today in Washington. There'll be an arrival ceremony at Joint Base Andrews, and then by late this afternoon there'll be an arrival ceremony at the Capitol, and then he will lie in state. His remains will lie in state in the Rotunda starting at 5 p.m. today, and that will continue until Wednesday morning, until 8:45. So all this is happening pretty quickly, and Air Force One, of course, went down to pick up the remains of the former president.
It is moments like these that do unite a country. I'm not sure how much it could unite this country today, but we do seem to come together during times like this.
We do, and if people, by and large, unless you just stay off some of the social media on Twitter, have nothing to say but good things about the former president, not only in his way of politicking, but just the kind of person he was. In fact, there was a story circulating around a lot of people may have forgotten about. He was just a principled person, and at one time he actually resigned his lifetime membership to the NRA because the vice president at the time, Wayne LaPierre, attacked, I guess it was the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Explosives as jackbooted thugs, and Bush went against maybe even some of his own party in that regard and said, "Hey, I'm resigning. Goodbye." So he was a man of principle, even if it would offend some people. Yet he had a way of being gentle about it all.
So where the Twitter certainly comes into play, you can imagine those really, really close part of the president's base. President Trump's base are the ones that are coming out against this president. Of course, he admitted that he voted for Hillary Clinton.
Yes, and he had called, I think, the then candidate Trump at the time, a blowhard. But even though there was the kind of the tensions between President Trump and the Bush family, it's my understanding President Trump plans to attend the funeral at National Cathedral. And so at least maybe some of the supporters of the president have been inflamed by the former president, but the president himself doesn't seem to be bothered and is going to attend. All
right, Rachel, we appreciate the update. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Rachel Sutherland is with Fox News. What else do we? I was going to try to play a little bit of audio. Some of the things that, of course, Dana Carvey was the one that did the SNL impression of George H.W. Bush so very well. The whole "read my lips" comment. Let's see if I can get this to play.
Friday night, former President George H.W. Bush passed away. He was 94 years old. Our thoughts and condolences go out to his and his family and friends.
That's right. President Bush was famously a very warm and gracious man who always understood the power in being able to laugh at yourself. So take a look.
1,000 points of light still operating, coming in from all those areas. Not gonna do it. Not gonna do it.
Dana, George Bush here. I'm watching you do your impression of me, and I gotta say, it's nothing like me. Bears no resemblance. It's bad. It's bad.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. President. I think it's a fair impression.
Don't see it.
You don't?
It's totally exaggerated. Not me, those crazy hand gestures.
It cuts off, of course, like every time I play a clip. But even during the interview on Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace, a previous interview, he even joked about the SNL impression just a little bit by saying, "Not gonna do it." And he exaggerated himself, which I thought was really kind of funny, pretty amazing. All right, and Andrews, Green Bay Packers.
Ooh, boy.
I think I'm with Manansky. I think they owed him after how many years? 10 years?
12.
They owed him the rest. I mean, what's going to happen between now and the rest of the season?
Somebody did say, that it was very sad that they did that, and I said not as sad as this season. That this team, with this quarterback, can't win one game on the road.
Yeah.
It's the same 3 plays over and over and over again. And they, by the way, lost to the Cardinals at home.
Yes.
So it's the one team in the NFL where I think the fans, because, everybody says it's the board of directors and the fans that own the team. I mean, there's not a lot of Packers fans I talk to that we're going to give him another chance in one game.
What? You know what? Andrew and I got into a bit of an argument in the kitchen yesterday after this happened.
With all the knives.
And I said, let's not do this now. Let's save it for the morning. And then we really couldn't reenact the emotion that was there.
Oh,
but
I
guess the problem that I had with what you were saying was you were all pro Rodgers and his $130 million contract, and you said there's a reason they pay Rodgers $130 million and McCarthy was making whatever he made. And I just felt like Rodgers is just so blah. He just blah.
What do you mean? He's the only reason they've won the games they've won this year.
So the thought.
So when they lost, it's not his fault at all. But when they win, it's 100%
No, I didn't say
him.
that. 100.
Well, he's the only reason they won.
He is the only reason they win.
Okay. So here's the general thought with this: is that they've invested so much in Rodgers that they have to bring in someone else that's going to work with him to bring out the best in him.
Yes.
And they certainly have invested a lot of money in him. So
and when I say that
like
he
a
is the
spiritual
reason for the
healer or
wins,
something?
the reason for the games that he wins is when he runs for first downs, when he scrambles out of the pocket because he's got no protection, when he breaks his collarbone twice in 3 or 4 years because he doesn't have that protection. Yeah, I mean, there's only so much he can
If
do.
it wasn't made out of plastic.
Well, that's not it at all.
And on that note, we'll break and come back, and who knows, this could continue. Here's Michael. Yes, there's a big difference in political style from then to now. Now there seems to be no style. I do think there's style. It's just different, a little different. Yeah. Maybe President Bush felt sorry for Bill Clinton for being married to Hillary is another comment. That I could see. And Rob says it was George H.W. Bush who requested Trump to attend his funeral. He even sent Air Force One to have him transported to D.C.
Trump did?
Well, no, Trump did. Yeah. And listen, he should.
Yes.
The problem is, just a few months ago, the president was making fun of George H.W. Bush and the whole 1,000 points of light. I don't know if you saw any of those clips from over the weekend. So now, just a few months later, in his tribute to the president, what do you think he references?
1,000 points of light.
1,000 points of light. So, hey, it is what it is. That's where we are. Colgate, Davey, were you at that game on Saturday?
Yes, I was.
That was a good game.
Sure was.
And it was a very competitive game. And now this quarterback, tell me a little bit about this quarterback. He did not play against Army.
Because he was out hurt.
He's been out for about a month, right?
Yeah.
So this was his first game back in at least 4 weeks.
Yeah, and then he came back and energized them up in the second half, and he ended up winning on the last second field goal, 23-20.
And they were down for a good part of the game. I mean, within reach, certainly, but it did seem like this was going to maybe be an end to Colgate's season, and to have that happen at home. But they really rallied in the second half, and now they move on. What happens next?
They go to face the number 1 seed, the national championship from last year, South Dakota State.
North Dakota State.
North Dakota State.
And that is and that is the quarterfinals in that playoff.
And I believe the game's on Saturday, from what I heard, is at noon. I believe it's either on ESPN or ESPN2.
Okay. Pretty cool.
Oh, that is an ESPN game, you think. Wow.
Colgate's having a really amazing season. And I got to tell you, with this quarterback back in play, I'm really, and now this James Madison, they are 2-time national champions.
They were the runner-up the last year, and they won it the previous
year. So it's not like they played a slouch here. Pretty impressive. What else going on here this morning? We did see and witness the inaugural home game for the Utica City FC. And did you see some of the pictures? Were you at the game?
I was not there.
You've seen some of the action. It was fast, and they're on fire.
Yeah, and
they open up 2-0.
Huge for them to not only win, but really handily win against the defending champion Baltimore Blast. It's really a good start to the season.
Today is a big day. Later this morning, the bishop in the Syracuse diocese is planning to release living and former and those who are deceased priests involved in what he says is credible cases of child abuse.
Yeah, and so Bishop Cunningham has traditionally chose to take the path of, if there is an accusation and somebody requests information if that person had a credible threat or not, then he would confirm it. This is something new for him, for at least, I think, diocesan policy to have this list be released. But I think with the list going ultimately to area and state district attorneys to look into the diocese, the diocese plural within the state, they kind of forced their hand to release these names.
You know what? It's about
and they should,
damn time.
As
because
they should.
I have to tell you something. My wife is a teacher. And if someone were to come forward to her and reveal any form of abuse, she is bound by law to report that.
Mm-hmm.
But priests aren't, and the church is not. That is despicable when you think about it. That these cases should all have gone to the authorities, and they didn't. And that's the most disgraceful thing that even today, I believe the Association of Nuns in, I believe, New York State came out just recently and said, do not report child abuse to the church. Go to the police. Why is there a double standard here?
Yeah, it's, I don't know, it's shocking. And not only does that crime not get investigated and prosecuted, but in many cases, the abuser would be relocated and then continue the practice.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to the new community that he was in.
And I think the new controversy that it will eventually ultimately face the Catholic Church is now there are reports coming out of nuns being abused by male priests and other leaders.
And beyond this, many of the people that are in charge are the very same people that were allowing these decisions to be made. How the church, obviously the church survives because it's bigger than the church. This is God, I guess. But at the same time, it's just so despicable that this would be happening in the way that it happened. That it would not have been referred to authorities. It's just terrible.
So you got this at church yesterday.
At church, yeah.
And there was something here I thought was really interesting. This is from Bishop Cunningham. Many of you are aware that there is divisiveness in the diocese regarding the release of the names of those with credible allegations. Over the years, I've explained that there are individuals who have been harmed who wish to have all of the names published, others who have explicitly asked not to have the name of their abuser made public. In order to respect their wishes, the name of an abuser was publicly confirmed only if the victim wished to make it known. So if you were abused and you didn't want Father A, B, and C to be, known, the church wouldn't ever confirm that. Well, there's a change coming today. Upon serious reflection and prayer, I have concluded that this practice has become a roadblock to moving our local church forward. Additionally, I believe it is not fair to my successor, whomever he is or whenever he comes, to leave him with this decision. So I think we're going to get a complete list today.
And let's take this a little further, because I still am suspicious of that decision. Because if you say to a victim, listen, it's all up to you if this person is publicly basically shamed. It's going to be all up to you. Now, do you want this name to go forward? I think that's an awful lot to be putting on victims. It should be just a given. You know that if you come forward, that person, your name should never be made public. But or I guess maybe it has to in some cases if it comes out in the midst of a trial. But I think that's putting an awful lot on a victim.
Yeah, and to even go a step further, I don't know that this happened, but I can imagine that it may have. Imagine the shame that you'll bring on to this local church if we identify. Yeah. So people not
to mention the parishioners who won't believe it. And let me tell you, I was involved in a case, and I would dare say a good half of this community, without getting into the whole story, half of this community didn't believe it ever happened and believed the abuser. I know differently because I was able to witness things that proved to me that this person was an abuser. But the victims were then ridiculed. So I find this because, listen, you put a lot of stock in your priest. And this is not a situation, by the way, of a priest abuse. It was another situation. But you put a lot of stock and a lot of faith in your priest.
And trust.
And there will be people, and many people, when that priest says, I didn't do this, that will fall in on the side of the priest and really, in some cases, attack the victim. It's terrible to see how this goes down. Ultimately, someone could falsely accuse someone, and you should be innocent until proven guilty. But I'm telling you that even after evidence comes out, people still don't believe it.
And just in some cases, again, this is not a reflection of every priest and every clergy member and every.
No, the majority
community.
of priests are incredible people who help people and are God-fearing people. This is a minority. Same thing with any other coach or Boy Scout leader or whatever. It's a small minority, but they're deviants.
And the problem is the cover. I mean, again,
the cover-up is the problem.
That's why it has been a problem for so long, because it's been literally kicked down the road. They can. So.
And it hurts good priests. It really does. We know very amazing priests out there that this does hurt them and almost places a cloud of shame on them, which, you really feel for those people.
And you think about, like, some people having the doubt. I think they look at it and they say, I trusted this person. I opened up to them about things that I was ashamed of, or sins, right? Wrongs that I committed.
And oftentimes you're looked upon with a great deal of judgment.
Yeah.
Yet, at this time, while I'm being judged by this person is doing this.
Yeah.
My sin was nothing in comparison to what this priest did to a child. So, and then today when you see adults, Joe Lode's father, who came in here and talked about what he's gone through, the torture that continues year after year and bleeds into families and bleeds into his family life to this day. It's really quite terrible.
So I'm sorry to cut you off. The one thing I wanted to mention is the list coming out today will be those who are deceased and those still living with credible claims. So we're supposed to get the full list.
It'll be interesting to see what ties to local churches we see coming out of today. Now, the Syracuse Diocese, I believe, ends down in Frankfort, maybe.
Yeah, because eventually in Herkimer County it goes to Albany.
It goes to Albany. I know that I believe Herkimer and Little Falls are both part of the Albany Diocese. So there is that cutoff, but that will include potentially a lot of local churches right here in this area. Speaking of Herkimer County, the Herkimer County IDA with a big announcement. They're moving forward on the project they're calling Higbee Gold. So they're putting in, I didn't realize with this it's going to take up the remaining property in the Pumpkin Patch Economic Development Business Park. It'll take up the remaining property there. And I guess I didn't realize how big this is really going to be. They've added a stoplight over there because traffic, by the end of next year, by early on next year, traffic is going to increase tremendously over there with trucks coming in and out as part of this Tractor Supply Distribution Center. But apparently so much traffic that they are creating basically a transportation center over there. It's going to include a very large convenience store and market, 3 different eateries. There will be a tractor-trailer weight station there. It looks like it's going to be quite the facility. They're even putting part of Herkimer County tourism in. So when you're looking to explore Herkimer County, you'll be able to stop there, and that'll be a hub where you can get information and figure out where and what you want to do. It's going to be large.
Wow.
Much bigger than we really thought. So the property, I believe they're moving forward on this. We'll speak with the IDA later on in the week. John Pisak, is that how his name is pronounced? P-I-S-E-C-K?
It sounds good to me.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. I'm glad you say that as opposed to the way you used to be like, yep, that's exactly what it is.
That's exactly right.
You've got it.
I'm exactly not sure.
That is until they come in studio and I mispronounce the name. So, what else do I have here? Luke Skywalker has been arrested. Yeah, happened on Thursday.
It's only a matter of time.
Violating his probation. He's 21. He lives in Tennessee. He was arrested last year after he and his friends were caught with 46 stolen road signs in their car. That's always a big thing, right? The road sign thing when you're a kid. He had 46 of them in the car. It gets to the certain point where you're being a little piggish, right?
Yes.
I mean, you could have gotten away with 45.
Wow.
But you had to go that one.
You had to take that stop sign.
That one stop sign further. The real Luke Skywalker even, by the way, this is his real name, even commented on the case during a news report that was done on this before. Here we go.
According to Elizabethton police arrested Luke Skywalker for violation of probation. Court records show the 21-year-old was on probation in connection to a felony theft charge.
Okay. The way he pronounces it, though, is the kid's last name Walker, and the parents named him Luke. Sky middle name Walker. Well, then, in news reports, I would not refer to him as Luke Skywalker. I'd call him Luke Walker.
It's like using your using your middle name. And here's a really interesting thing, and you kind of wonder, a 28-year-old guy in New Zealand, his name is Nick Prosser, who stutters. And it's been very difficult through his entire life. People who stutter, they oftentimes are made fun of, especially early on.
Yeah.
But now he says he's come up with a solution. His stuttering goes away. He speaks fluently as long as he speaks with an Irish accent. Okay? And it's really weird, but it works.
Oh, my God.
And I have audio. Are you ready? Here we go.
It's been a really struggle, and with some conversation, the words don't get out very well, and then some people treat you differently, and some people wait for you, some people try to say the words for you. But then now, speaking in my Irish voice, it's helped me a lot more, and I'm a lot more confident. And so it's like, good morning, how are you? My name's Nick, and when you have a stutter, it's the hardest name to say to someone. When you have a stutter, the hardest word is to say your name. Like when I meet out people in public and I try to say my name, and it's like Nick. But now with the Irish Nick, easy, no worries.
I really can't tell the difference between his normal accent and his Irish accent, but he says that's what does it, and now he can speak without a stutter.
My mother stutters. I don't know if you guys knew that.
I did not know that.
And actually, was picked on as a child, obviously, because a lot of that stuff comes to light when you're a child. And it's funny because I think she sometimes struggles when she meets new people when she introduces herself.
So there becomes a conscious. It's like me standing in front of the urinal with two guys on either side of me. Where's the stall? I believe it's similar. I really do. I do believe it's a subconscious. Now, I don't know anything about stuttering, but I do know about two big guys standing on the left and the right of me. It's like, oh, great.
You just got to look up, look straight, look
think
up.
Running
look straight,
water.
look up.
Think running water. Yeah. Sorry about that. And Burger King is bringing back Cine Minis. Do you care?
No. These are the adult treats to go with their dog Whopper snacks. Apparently.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And they didn't even give it a good name. What do they call it?
Dog purrs.
Yeah. Dog purrs.
Dog purr.
You know, dog purr. And you're sitting there like...
It's like a Whopper.
Dog
purr?
Dog. Yeah, and then they say, if you have to explain that it's a play on the Whopper word, then it ain't a play on the Whopper word.
Yeah.
Dog purr?
Yeah.
I'm thinking immediately, is it dog and cat? Is
there some crossbreed?
Oh, no. This is our brilliant marketing campaign that makes you think of Whopper.
Can I make one point
Dumbest thing ever.
Do we know how much a dog purr is? Can anybody check it out?
Well,
it's a little treat, right, for a dog? Because
it might even be free.
It might be free, okay. Because I'm going to say, they're selling 10 chicken nuggets for $1. So if this dog purr is anything more than $1, it lets you know what ingredients they put into the dog purr versus what you're getting in your chicken nugget.
Here is the commercial, the old commercial of Cine Minis. You have to go way back into the 90s to remember these. Here we go. I'm assuming the Tokyo comment was something of a visual in that TV commercial, because I'm not sure what they really meant by that. But either way, Cine Minis back at Burger King. Line up now and get yours before they're gone. 6:56 Monday, first Monday in December. Do you realize that 3 weeks from today, we'll be in the midst of our Christmas Eve show? Which I was trying to figure out the date, like this would be the 20th annual or whatever. I've been doing this show for several years. Started in 1990. Where the original radio station I was on didn't really trust it, and they're like, you can do it during your regular show. We don't want you to go longer. And we did one, which is kind of like the conversation I had here at IBX when I wanted to go along with the thing. But by the next year, they said, yep, you can go from 6 till noon, and the show has not stopped since. Except Stephen Rubitsky was live on the scene at the New York State Teddy Bear Toss and was giving me updates about every 5 minutes on Saturday night. Good morning, Stephen Rubitsky.
Well, hello, Bill, Jeff, Andrew, and Davey. And yes, I was at the New York Sash Teddy Bear Toss at the auditorium on Saturday night.
And it was a little bit of a scare in the first period, right?
Yeah, no one scored, and but the beginning of the second period, UC finally broke the momentum and scored.
And they won. What was the final, by the way, Stephen?
5-0. UC had a shutout.
Now, Manansky kind of feels like maybe Scott gave Scott Hayes from New York Sets might have given what was the name of the team they played?
Chatham.
A bit of an inspiration because he said the Pioneers are going to score quickly and often, and they seem to kind of button down and prevent. Well, they did. They prevented any goals in the first period.
In the goal that UC scored to throw the Teddy Bears was a short-handed goal.
Okay, nice. The way I heard it during the intermission, it's 0-0, and Scott Hayes burst into the locker room and was like, "You are not going to do this to us. You get out there and you score," and that's exactly what happened.
Did that really happen?
No.
I don't think so. Okay.
I mean, I don't want to say no for sure because I really don't know, but I'm assuming we were there when that goal wasn't scored, that one game 4 or 5 years ago. So, all right, Stephen, well, thank you for the update. Did you bring a teddy bear to toss?
Yes, I did. I brought a little teddy bear.
Nice.
And it was tossed.
And describe the scene when the goal was scored and the teddy bears went flying. Give us in your best radio delivery the scene that occurred inside the Adirondack Bank Center.
Well, it was teddy bears raining from all over the place, and one even got stuck in the netting.
All right, that'll happen. So, all right, Stephen, thanks for the report.
You know, one funny thing, a lot of bears, ton of bears. I couldn't.
You got to say, Stephen, over and out.
Over and out.
All right, thanks, man.
One of the funny things was, as they were collecting the bears, there was a giant-sized Winnie the Pooh that my son had his eye on as it made its way down. There was also a giant-sized, horse, right? It was I don't know, it was probably 2-3 feet tall. So one of the UC players, I don't know which one it was, kind of got on it and was skating, and it looked like he was riding it, and the whole place started laughing.
We have
really
my daughter has that horse. It's what my daughter had the horse, and that is the coolest thing. It's animated. You put batteries in it. Kid gets on it. You feel like you're riding it. It is the coolest stinking horse, and so it gets passed on to every time somebody has a kid. We end up passing the thing on, but it's quite the device that horse is.
Yeah.
So
it was funny. He was weaving in through the piles of teddy bears. It was everyone was laughing. You could hear the laughter in the yard.
All right, we're going to talk to Ryan Hall, who is the head coach of Utica City FC. We'll get to him coming up in a few minutes, and I'll give you some audio more on our tribute to George H.W. Bush. I have some audio there, and I want to get into this Kansas City Chiefs Kareem Hunt, who has now been cut from the Chiefs, and I'm sure you saw the video of him. It seemed like he was being attacked by a woman, and he was telling her to leave. It might have been his party or something, and I kind of felt like he was okay right up until he tried to kick her.
Yeah,
and it looked like, by the way, it was his house, and
was it his house? It
was
a
his
hotel.
house. Exactly.
Yeah.
It looked like the front lobby of his home or whatever. Looks like
by the elevator,
a hotel lobby.
Yeah. Wow. So we'll talk about that and take get everybody's opinion on that here. But he has been let go by the Chiefs. This will be the math on my career. We're trying to figure out what year is this. We call it the annual Christmas Eve extravaganza. It'll be 3 weeks from today, December 24th. It is, if you've never heard this show, I've been doing it for many years. And it is the most awesome program we put out every year. I love it. And it's also exhausting, isn't it?
Yes.
Because it's like one guest, sometimes 3 or 4 at a time we're bringing people in. Entertainment, music, and try to take the politicians and local figures out of their element so it becomes somewhat entertaining. So I was trying to figure out. So it started in 1990 was the first year. And then I did it every year thereafter here until 1995 when I went to Providence. And I did it there in 95. And I did it there in 96. And then came back in 97 and did it here. What are we up to now?
That's 8. And
then I was fired just before the Christmas show in 2002.
So, but you did it all those years in between?
Yeah.
So that's you didn't do it in 2002. So you're at 12.
I did not, because I was fired in December of 2002. I like to say to say let go because it sounds so much better. So then we started the TV show, and I did it every year on the TV show. We did an hour. It was different, but we did an hour special on the TV show, and that went on until I went on Kiss FM, and we never quite got to it, but we did get to it that year. But it ended up being on The Drive, and then I did another 3 years on The Drive until she fired me the day after the Christmas Eve show.
Well,
it was like Christmas Day. It's like, hey, great show. I think we're not going to renew you.
Merry Christmas.
So then there was an in-between with a couple of years before I got hired here. So we got to be up to how many years? I have no clue.
You got to give me years or numbers. I mean, when you go, well, we did a couple years here, and then we did one here, and it didn't count. It's 20. If you did every year from 90 to now, it would be boy, let me rethink that.
No, it'd be
29
30.
years. It'd be 20. This would be the
29th year.
Right, but you didn't. You have to figure out what years you weren't on the air.
Some years we think back to the human buffet. I mean, you just imagine what that was. I'll let you use your imagination. That was awesome. We one year had Senator Griffo decorating the human Christmas tree. That was kind of a cool thing. 1 year we did a stunt where we tried to see if we could actually fit someone down a chimney and see if that would actually work for the Santa Claus thing. That never really turned out so well.
No,
but we always did some sort of something, tried to take the whole year and pack it into one 6-hour show and bring people in that normally come in but kind of take them out of their element.
Yeah.
And that's why I think this show is so cool. It'll be on live on radio, of course, TV on Fox 33, on the web through our website at WIBX950.com, or you can listen to it all morning long, WIBX 950, the app, which is what you'd search for, WIBX 950.
Yeah, and we should clarify, you try to take politicians out of their element. All the musical artists, you want them right at home.
Right in there, yeah.
Yeah.
And
but the politicians, we try to
and the beauty is to be able to pick it up on the app because it's in digital quality when it so the music sounds so awesome. And they're all doing Christmas. They're all doing Christmas stuff. And I'm going to tell you, it's not easy to get these musicians to come in to a morning radio show, but they do it. And some of them, like take a Justin Smithson, has been doing it. Probably doing this Christmas show every year, except when I was in Providence. Probably has been doing it every year since '92.
Wow.
He was just like a young kid when he came in and did Eric Clapton song when he was like, I don't know, 12 years old or something. He's, of course, from the band Showtime.
The song he sings about the little baby.
He does that every year.
I almost cried the first time I heard it. And he did the Grinch live last year, which was amazing.
Hit those low notes really well, didn't he?
He's unbelievable.
Pretty incredible. I have some birthdays here for you today from Monday, December 3rd. Bennett Kinderman of New Hartford is 3 years old today. Happy birthday, Bennett. 3 years old. Happy birthday to you. Come on, you leave me out here.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Bennett Kinderman.
Very nice. Of New Hartford, who's 3.
Happy birthday to you.
Brett Truitt of Utica, we ain't singing for you, Brett. I'm sorry. The hospital's coming downtown. No, I'm sorry. Brett of Utica, Brett Truitt, happy birthday today. And a belated happy birthday to Helen Campbell of Utica, 83 on the 2nd. Carol Brower, 92 on the 1st, from Willie Hall at Masonic. Up on our website at WIBX950.com. I know it's not a big deal, but it is about the time that George H.W. Bush called me.
Yeah.
You smile like you think it is stupid. Do you think it was stupid?
I don't think it was real.
You don't think it was real?
I'm just teasing you.
Yeah. Well.
No, I think that's a big deal. That's a huge thing.
It was amazing.
Was it your birthday or something, or was it his birthday?
No. I'll tell the whole story coming up.
Okay.
And you can ask Brad Davies because it was Brad would confirm that it was real. But we couldn't record it. We were told that it could not be recorded. So as long as I promised that I would not record the call, I heard and I was able to hear the words, "Please hold for the president."
Wow.
And he had just left office. So this was February. I'll give you the dates. It was really unbelievable. And I just want to, while it is insignificant, don't get me wrong, it was not for me. So we'll talk about it coming up. David in Holland Patton. Hello, Dave. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Got an easy question for you. Are you ready?
Sure.
You have 7 seconds. Get it in from Hobica. Your chance to win $100 in cash. The former president of the United States, George H.W. Bush, had a service dog. What was his service dog's name? Ready? Go.
Rudolph.
Was it Rudolph? That really would ruin the whole thing. If it was, it wouldn't be such a sentimental story. It's like, well, the president's service dog was laying there in front of the casket, old Rudolph. It would be different. Actually, it was Sully.
Sully. Oh,
didn't the dog's getting a lot of news right now because the dog wouldn't leave the president's side.
Didn't he name the dog after
I think so.
the pilot that saved all the people? That's kind of cool.
I don't know for sure, though. I'm going to give you a gift card to the 72 Tavern and Grill. It's a $25 gift card, and that's the restaurant at the Adirondack Bank Center. The tuna tartare, the burgers, the tater tots are loaded. The wings are incredible. The food is really, really good, and it's a great place to go for lunch or dinner. All right, Dave?
Hey, thank you.
All right, you sit tight, and Davey's going to hook you up, all right? Okay. Davey, hook him up. So I noticed that smile that you – I kind of felt like you didn't think it really happened.
Well, that's a big deal, I think.
It is a big deal.
What was it? Well,
let me tell you how it happened.
Yeah,
let me explain to you how – I'm trying to bring up the story so I can get the dates right.
You know, and it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. I wouldn't put it past you to pull something like this.
Donna Donovan had lunch with him. She talked about that in a story in the OD over the weekend.
She was the publisher of a
newspaper.
Yeah.
I was the morning show host of a really troubled morning radio show. So here's how it went down. Back in, I got to get the dates right here. So this would have been 1993, in August of 1993. Sarah Ann Wood was abducted. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you, if you weren't around for that, how intense that was for everybody. This was all anybody talked about. And, I was a rock morning show and, crank calls and songs and stupid stuff. But it was a big deal for everybody. Mm-hmm. And so think of what came out of that. The Ride for Missing Children and the center for
the local center that does all the printing.
All of this, and the printing is done from here. So it was a big deal, and we were all trying to figure out, and no one knew anything until he finally, in 1994, later in 1994, confessed. I'm not sure of the exact dates there, but I do know that in 1993, President George H.W. Bush was in the fight of his life for the presidency, running against Bill Clinton. And so this would have been 1994, after Clinton was inaugurated. Prior to that, during the fall, we had reached out to the White House and said, isn't there a way we can get more national publicity? Is there some way that the White House, someone at the White House could come in defense of this small community in upstate New York as we try, because every day is critical that she isn't found. It increases the chance that we're going to find her deceased, or in the case of Sarah Ann Wood, we never did find her.
Or haven't yet.
So
no.
I knew it was kind of but that was my thing back then. We would always be calling celebrities. We'd have phone numbers. That's when everybody had a landline. Yeah. It was at least once a week that I was calling a celebrity. Dan Quayle, if you remember, and I have the audio to prove this one. We had called into Dan Quayle's office. This had nothing to do with this, but the aide picked up the phone, was like, "Is this his dad?" Well, my answer, of course, was, yeah, it is.
I mean,
2 minutes later, Dan Quayle's on the phone, live on the radio with us. So that's what we did back then, and
Dad,
it was what it was. So I'd put in a call to George H.W. Bush in the White House, and not ever expecting in a million years that we would get anything out of it. But, it was what I did that morning. So he had lost the election. I was actually in Washington, D.C. for the inauguration of Bill Clinton. I think one of the saddest moments was watching the helicopter fly over, which was carrying George and Barbara Bush away from the White House. The transition of power was underway in Washington, D.C. Anyway, so now that was January. Now fast forward to Valentine's Day. We were on our way. We were working I was on K-Rock in Utica and Syracuse. So we were on our way to do an event in Syracuse, and we were in a car. So it was a limousine, actually, for a promotion that we were doing. Anyway, about the point we hit Canastota, the phone rang. It was my cell phone. And, excuse me, we're calling for the President of the United States. And I'm telling you, I thought it was a joke. And they said we couldn't record it. It was very, very official. And it was him. It was unbelievable. And I explained to him the whole situation, what we were going through, and what the family of Sarah Ann Wood was going through. And his worry was that based on his current job, which he didn't have one, he wasn't sure what he could do, but said that he would make phone calls on behalf of the people of Central New York and on behalf of Sarah Ann Wood. And then I got a little nervous, and I'm like, so how's Barbara? So I'm trying to keep the conversation going.
Sure.
And it ended pretty politely and abruptly at that point. And that was the end of it. Now, is it possible that it wasn't really? I guess it's possible. But if you look at the history and the way that this guy carried his life, he doing things for other people was everything that George H.W. Bush was about. And I really believe that on that day he was just going through, and he said there were things that he had on his list of things to do that he had not gotten to, and he wanted to make a phone call. It was incredible. That's really cool. That is my little brush with the president. I understand he would never remember it, and it was completely just probably one of many phone calls he was making that day. But for me and for Brad Davies, that was just unbelievably spectacular. But it does show that this guy would take the time to make these phone calls to nobodies. And it is a classic example of constituent services. Taking care, now whether I realized his constituency was the entire country. And later on, really the things he did in the world and working with the public service that he did afterwards. But this guy, that he would take the time to make these phone calls, that's just enormous, right?
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Pretty wild.
Of all people to call, why you?
I know. And I'm like, clearly, his research team was left back at the White House because they would have done a little. But it wasn't me; it was the story, and that story was getting a great deal of national play. If you remember John Walsh with America's Most Wanted, he was talking about Sarah Ann Wood every week on that program.
Yeah.
So it was getting a lot of national play, and that's just my little moment. Pretty cool. 7:47. We'll come right back. I have some audio from the president, too, we can play. And I want to get into this football player who's probably done after being, it looked like he was being attacked by this woman, and she wouldn't leave his house, and he was probably okay right up to the point that he tried to kick her. We'll talk about it coming up at WIBX. William, good morning.
Good morning, Bill. I heard you guys all singing there before,
Yeah.
Happy birthday, and please do not ever quit your day job.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Bill, stick to sports, okay?
Yeah, it was a little rough there, Bill. I think I'd agree with you. He is so bothered that he is hanging up. Instead of the Bush stuff, because you're going to hear that for the next 3 days. Let's get into this Kareem Hunt. The video is playing over and over all over the place. He's the Chiefs running back who's now been let go by the team after video surfaced that there was an incident at his home. And
it was a hotel.
It was a hotel?
Yeah.
And he has admitted to the Chiefs that he lied to them. It was the first time they'd seen the video. The video is out. It was a TMC video. And a sit-down with ESPN, Kareem says he's sorry and embarrassed for what he did. Here we go.
Honestly, I'd never met the girl before besides that one time, and it was just a disagreement, and I wanted her just to leave, but it was definitely some things that were said and did that I did not like, and that's not an excuse. It's not I was in the wrong. I could have took responsibility and, made the right decision to, find a way to de-escalate the whole situation. The video shows it. I was in the wrong, and I'm not that type of person. That person in that video did not deserve that. I didn't mean to hurt anybody or anything like that. And I'm really disappointed and embarrassed for myself and for my family, and I really am taking actions to learn from this, and it's really tough. It's tough because, I feel like I let a lot of people down, and I just really want to,
apologize. So what do we think here? Is there more to the video than, because I didn't see where he actually made any contact with a woman.
Yeah, the videos I've seen, there was a freeze frame that I saw where he attempts to kick her, but I did not see that he actually struck her. There's one point during it where he's being held back. He kind of comes free. He runs into the back of, I believe, a friend of his, who then collides with the woman, and they both hit the ground. But I don't believe this is a situation where he struck her.
The one, who was the one?
Ray Rice.
Ray Rice. That was awful. I mean, he knocked her out, dragged her like a caveman out of the elevator.
Yeah. People are trying to say that this is like a Ray Rice thing. I just, in my opinion, I don't see it that way. I don't think it's appropriate to put your hands on a woman or get physical with a woman. But, I mean, Ray Rice got in an argument with his wife and basically acted like he was in a boxing match with another man. Knocked her unconscious in one shot. She was unconscious in an elevator, and as you say, dragged her out like a caveman. This is a situation where I'm not saying Kareem Hunt is in the right here. Don't misunderstand me. He's at a hotel. I believe he's paying for it. He's got a few people, little gathering in his hotel room there. He tells this woman, who apparently is 19, I just heard there, that it's time to go. You have to go. She doesn't want to go. The reports are she calls him the N-word and then strikes either his girlfriend or his friend, strikes her. So now he's like, okay, now you have to go. Get out of here.
Yeah.
And it obviously escalated. He said in the video there, he should have taken some steps to de-escalate the situation, which I agree with. But anybody comparing this to a Ray Rice thing, I think is way off the mark.
Unless he had made contact with a kick.
Had
he made contact, I mean, it looked like the kick, there was an intention to make contact. But at the same time, it didn't happen. He's been let go. So does he play again?
I think he does. The NFL is talking about a 6-game or more suspension for him. Now, obviously, he's been cut loose by the Chiefs. I actually do think you will see a team pick him up. I mean, heck, the Reuben Foster, the linebacker there, who has an active domestic violence charge against him, was picked up the day he was released, which was kind of shocking.
I do tell you, this guy said all the right things, right?
He is saying yes. The right things.
He is taking responsibility, going to go through with some sort of anti-violence classes. But I almost feel like this should become mandatory in the NFL, where you take classes on temper and violence and anger management. I mean, because this stuff is so prevalent, it seems. Yeah. And you wonder, at what point were you brought up in, what family were you brought up in if it is okay to kick or hit a woman?
Right.
There's how many times as guys listening right now would think about a time where they were being punched in the face by a female and just took it because you've always been taught you don't touch a woman, right?
Right.
How are these people not taught that? And if they aren't, then you get all amped up and you're trying to get ready for a football game. Although this happened a few months ago, right?
Yeah, it happened in February.
So I don't understand how it can happen.
Here's the point, I guess. When I try to put myself in his shoes, I guess here's the point where I'm with him. Imagine like everybody, it's Christmas season, right? Everyone's going to have their Christmas parties. So you have a little gather, right? There's a little Christmas thing or something. And I know this was in February. It wasn't a Christmas party. I'm just trying to see a situation where I would be in this situation where how do you handle it? So he invites a few people back to his house or his hotel room, whatever it is. There's several folks there, guys and gals. At some point, you say to a guest, it's time to go home.
Yeah,
Party's over, time to go home. And the reply is, I'm not leaving. Oh, okay, well, let's go. I mean, if there's a few people going, there's a few people staying, but it's time to go. Then she replies by calling you the N-word and then strikes another one of your guests. You know, imagine that's your wife.
I get it. And
are you just going to stand there?
I do not believe, though, that I would strike her.
You can't. No, you can't.
Yeah, I wouldn't try to kick her. I probably would try to remove her. I think the best thing you call 911, but then again, what's in the hotel room that you don't want 911 to see?
But even if you went down that road, how long does it take the cops to get there? 5-7 minutes?
Yeah.
You just stand there and let the woman keep hitting your wife or your girlfriend?
Yeah. I mean, somebody's got to
somebody needs to intervene.
At the very least, restrain her. But to try to kick or punch, that's where you get yourself in trouble.
I think this is an important point too that a lot of famous people should keep in mind. You don't need to be the one to break things up. There's a lot of people with him who aren't worth millions of dollars and famous people who could, find themselves in a lawsuit. So there's got to be someone there.
You shouldn't have to
intervene.
Be restrained. You should have enough restraint where you're not having to be restrained,
right?
Which he was. So, all right, got a break. Hold on, we'll get into more of this coming up. Also, Mark Kelso from the Bills after a heartbreaking loss yesterday. We'll get to it. Good morning, Rabbi. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? Can you hear me well?
I have you, and thanks so much. Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you so much. Happy Hanukkah.
So I know we kind of go through this every year, but for those who don't understand the Jewish culture, explain, if you would please, what Hanukkah is and means to Jewish families.
As one local Jewish doctor told me yesterday, he said, it's just another one of the holidays. They tried to kill us. We won, so let's eat. But I think there's more to it, but that's pretty much in a nutshell.
Yeah.
That's the radio bite-sized version. But it's the story of the Assyrian Greeks who tried to really get rid of the Jewish religion and culture more than really more the religious aspect. And they didn't actually care that much for the Jews. And when the Jews sort of stood their ground, they went and defiled the temple, and they basically made laws against Jewish observance and Jewish ritual. And in the end, the Jews triumphed, and it was a very weird fight because the Jews were a very small number, and they were able to overcome their very strong and large oppressors. And so it's a great story. And then the end of the story goes that they only had enough oil to last one night's worth of lighting, and the kindling of the menorah in the temple would happen every day, and so they wouldn't be able to get any more fuel for about 8 days. And it ended up lasting the time that it would take to get new oil. So that's part of the miracle that is with it, the fact that we won the war and then the oil lasted. And there's obviously much significance and much symbolism in it, but it's become a real public holiday display of Jewish pride, etc., etc. And today that's only magnified, especially by most recent events. And so that's what it is in a nutshell.
And what is the first of all the food? What foods are traditional for Hanukkah?
So it's become traditional over I'd say centuries. Depends where you lived and what culture you were part of. But we generally, the custom is to have oily foods because we're remembering the oil, the miracle of the oil. That's kind of where it comes from. So we have latkes, which are basically potato pancakes, just saturated in oil. And then we have sufganiyot, is what they called in Hebrew, but they are basically Jewish or Israeli donuts, which don't have a hole in them, and which are usually, instead of the hole, you put some filling inside. You can put jam, you can put like jelly, you can put custard, chocolate, whatever you'd like, and those are a real delicacy. And those are the main ones. Then we have chocolate gelt, which is just chocolate money, because it's a custom to give your kids money. We actually, there isn't the custom to give presents on Hanukkah is sort of a new thing, but it really, the written in the books is to give money to the children. So Hanukkah gelt, I think, is one of those things. And then, the other things, those are the main foods, I'd say.
Yeah. I got to tell you, for the holidays, we find as our kids have gotten older, you give them money. And I kind of like the idea of having that money made of chocolate. That's a far less expensive. I got to start considering that, to be honest.
Yeah, but then your kid tries to pay the mechanic to fix their car with that, and then you wonder why they come home. So, yeah, doesn't always work.
All right. Well, awesome, and I appreciate the update. Happy Hanukkah to you,
Thank you so
Rabbi.
much. Did you know that we're doing a public menorah lighting on the Village Green?
I did not know that.
First time ever in the Village Green in Clinton. We'll be lighting the menorah on Thursday at 5 p.m. So anyone, especially your Clinton listeners, I hope they can make it.
That is awesome. So that's Thursday, 5 p.m. in the village of Clinton. Very cool. Rabbi,
Thank you so much. Happy
Thanks so
Hanukkah.
much.
Thanks for always having me in.
All right, we appreciate it. Rabbi Diddy Walks. Coming up, Robert Contalbiano is actually a former UC grad and worked with President George H.W. Bush. We'll kind of get his take on all of it when we come back here. WIBX.
My opponent now says he'll raise them as a last resort or a third resort. But when a politician talks like that, you know that's one resort he'll be checking into. And my opponent won't rule out raising taxes, but I will, and the Congress will push me to raise taxes, and I'll say no. And they'll push, and I'll say no. And they'll push again, and I'll say to them, read my lips. No new taxes.
Well, that came back to haunt him because with the economy tanking, he did raise taxes. And talk about raising taxes and talking about his opponent, that was Bill Clinton. Little did President Bush know at the time that Bill Clinton would actually be raising the roof in the Oval Office, having a blast with all sorts of inappropriate things in the Oval Office. Anyway, that read my lips thing. The other thing that, the other catchphrase that came out was George Bush's famous line in reference to 1,000 points of light.
I've spoken of 1,000 points of light, of all the community organizations that are spread like stars throughout the nation doing good. We will work hand in hand, encouraging, sometimes leading, sometimes being led, rewarding. We will work on this in the White House, in the cabinet agencies. I will go to the people and the programs that are the brighter points of light, and I'll ask every member of my government to become involved. The old ideas are new again because they're not old. They are timeless. Duty, sacrifice, commitment, and a patriotism that finds its expression in taking part and pitching in.
Could you imagine that speech being given today?
No.
Okay, I was just asking. Robert Contalbiano is a former Secret Service special agent in charge. During his 3 decades with the Secret Service, he protected most of the presidents, former presidents and first ladies, and including the 41st president of the United States, who passed away on Friday, George H.W. Bush. Robert, good morning. Of course, Robert is also a Utica College graduate and is on the line with us right now. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So, from everything I see, people who knew this president, even though we knew that he was getting older and his health was beginning to fail, this really took people quite dramatically, the passing of President Bush.
If you look at it as a country as a whole, he's from the greatest generation. Him and President Carter they're what we have left to the war heroes.
Yeah.
And so much into our past, and I think that really tugs at our sleeves. I call him, and many of your listeners may out there will remember this, the Jimmy Stewart of the presidency. That actor, It's a Wonderful Life, because that's what it was to have known him, to be around him, and we all had a wonderful life.
Yeah. It is quite interesting when you think of the legacy, although I believe he hated that word, at least in an interview with Fox News. That's what he had said previously. But his father was a U.S. Senator. He went up the ranks and then ultimately becoming vice president and then president of the United States. His son becomes a governor and then becomes president, and his other son is a governor and ran for president. Wow. I don't know how you don't use the word legacy.
Well, again, you're right. If he was in front of you right now, he'd probably have a smile and try to move on, because that's the way he was brought up. They were not brought up to brag. His mother taught him not to brag about things, to let other people have credit, and to be humble and to say thank you and you're welcome. And being around them, that's what they taught their children, because I saw it, and their grandchildren. And it's a way of life that if we all can just a little bit in this Christmas time emulate, we'd all be better off.
I will say the current president of the United States has been quite respectful on Twitter. And that's, of course, where we all go to see where he is. Unfortunately, it was about 6 months ago he was making fun of the 1,000 points of light. But respectfully, when he released his official statement on the 41st president, he referenced that and was quite respectful. How do we avoid the media, which we're so divided today? How do we avoid this moment where people are going to try to make that comparison between our current president and the 41st?
Well, I think, first of all, we shouldn't compare the presidents. It's a very dishonest way of looking at things, because times are different, situations are different, and obviously the people are different.
Mm-hmm.
And being around a lot of them, I've lived through it. I think we just have to focus on the current president and the situation. Otherwise it'd be very hard to live up to it. And I'll say this because I was around him also. It would be very hard to compare a lot of the modern presidents with even Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
And I don't think we should do that. He was in the right place at the right time. Same thing with George H.W. Bush, at the right place at the right time. And I think, we let history with President Bush speak for itself.
Yeah.
I will say that, to me, he will go down as, in the modern times, or in the 20th century, and even beyond, probably the greatest one-term president that we've ever had. And if you look at his accomplishments, they speak for itself. And if you look at the man, the way that he acted, it speaks for itself.
I watched the Chris Wallace interview on Saturday. They played a couple of old interviews, and boy, it was emotional to see. President Bush was at the I believe the Bush Library, and there they have this mock room where it's set up like the Oval Office and set up like the War Room, and of course this was the president that took us into the first Gulf War, and there was an interview in there of a soldier that had cornered and had a gun pointing at these 4 Iraqis that were in some sort of a cave, and the soldier was saying, "We're not going to hurt you," and the president began to choke up during that, saying, "This is what America is. We are better than that. We are not here to take advantage and to hurt you." And that moment brought the president to tears. That really showed you how important. Did we lose him?
We did.
We must have, yeah.
Wow. They just that moment was just unbelievable to I didn't realize we were so tight with them.
Well, they were supposed to have him on at 20. So.
Got it. But that moment was, to bring him to tears was really quite incredible. And we should also say that it was George H.W. Bush that asked the current president to, despite the fact that he did not necessarily politically support President Trump, he asked the president to attend his funeral. Unlike the John McCain thing, and I get it, John McCain had asked to have the president not there. In this case, he asked for the president to be there, which is a pretty big moment, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Boy, sorry we lost him. Normally on a day that isn't like today, we get him for as long as we want. But anyway, it is what it is. 8:30. Hold on. Coming up, we'll talk a little Buffalo Bills. What a heartbreaker yesterday, a game they should have won. And we'll speak to Mark Kelso. Coming up at WIBX. Syracuse Diocese is expected to release a list of priests both deceased and living priests tied up in this child abuse.
It'll be
stuff.
it'll be a list of priests, again, living and deceased, with credible threats that date back to 1950.
Allegations, credible allegations.
So I'm through. I think that this is going to be coming. I think it's going to be coming any minute now. We got to be pretty close to it.
A lot of people are, I guess, trying to find out because both websites
you can't get to
are
the
really
website.
trying to
so
slowing
that,
down.
That means they're either up right now or people.
I
are
think they
trying
might
to
be
get
up.
to them right
I've
now.
gotten through a link that I wasn't able to get through on before. So the question is going to be how many of the names on the list. It's going to take us a while to get through the list, I'm assuming, because there's a lot of them, right?
I guess. I mean, but
how many have had ties, whether long-term ties or brief stints, serving here in Utica and the Mohawk Valley? Now, this list will not include priests from Herkimer and churches in Little Falls because they're a part of the Albany Diocese. But if you're a part of the Syracuse Diocese, this list will include priests here.
And they're going to be, I guess, giving the information to district attorneys in the
that was
appropriate counties.
So that was the reason, I think, for the decision to release the list to people in the diocese or to the public because of the pressure of, the DAs are going to get the list of names anyway, so it's better to get it all out, I think, now.
My only question about, it would have to be a current, I guess, accusation. My only question about that is when you put out there, Father A, B, and C, while there may be credible accusations against that person, there are a lot of opportunistic people out there who would say, oh, by the way, I want part of the settlement. So
the Syracuse Diocese website, by the way, has crashed. It is not opening right now. So we'll keep on it, and we'll get to it. Also this morning, Mark Kelso, standing by from the Buffalo Bills. Mark, good morning. Boy, it's tough to win a game when every time your quarterback gets the first down, it's called back on some little holding call. A lot of penalties yesterday.
Yeah, too many certainly to survive with the level of production they have offensively. So it's difficult, and some of them seemed legitimate calls. It's hard. The officiating is not an easy job. There's no question about that. I thought the call against Milano was a difficult call. He was in good position. Didn't seem like he did anything to negatively affect the tight end's opportunity to catch that ball. And then the other one with Phillips was just kind of exuberance about making a good play. I don't think he did anything disrespectful, and officials may have seen it otherwise. And unfortunately, those two big plays resulted in their go-ahead touchdown and ultimately caused the Bills the loss. But you just have to keep playing. Sometimes it's too many holding calls on the offensive line, which, like you mentioned, had brought back a number of positive plays. But I thought they took a step forward. I thought Josh Allen took a step forward. He made some nice throws.
Yeah, he did.
Extending the down and the throw on the back end line to Zay Jones was a beautiful throw. And then the other one to Zay was a flat-footed throw that was on target. And he did some good things. I still think there were a couple decisions that he could have made to just get rid of the ball and release it a little bit earlier. But he made some good decisions yesterday. There's no question about that.
I would have thought that his running game would have done a little more to open up McCoy's running game, but it really didn't. He tended to be stuffed up the middle all day long.
Yeah, it's difficult. LaShawn's really where he needs to run. He doesn't like to run particularly inside, and I think his most effective place to run is just on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes when he can get outside, he can outrun those, particularly linebackers and usually a cornerback as well if he gets to the edge. And so he likes to just attack just outside the kind of the inside shoulder of the tackles or out where the tight ends would typically line up, and that becomes a really good spot for him. But that's all about the offensive line creating opportunities and trying to seal blockers on one shoulder so LaShawn McCoy can find a seam. And certainly the quarterback's opportunity to run, with the exception of maybe a quarterback draw, there's no correlation between that and opening up holes. Those are just opportunities that arise via the pass rush of the opponent. And Josh Allen sees a lane that's available. He understands that
in a lot of situations, as the down extends itself, defenders are getting deeper down the field, or else they're playing zone or man coverage, and they've got their backs turned to him, so he can pick up a lot of ground with his feet. And Kiko Alonso was chasing him down all day long and couldn't catch up to him. So it's obvious the athleticism and the speed that Josh Allen has. You're not going to survive doing that on a regular basis. You just have to pick your spots. I thought he did a good job picking his spots, and I don't think he took too many big hits yesterday, and that's good when you're running the ball as a quarterback.
Yeah.
You know, watching him on that final possession, when he scrambled out of the pressure, circled back around, and heaved it into the end zone, all I could think of was Brett Favre. That's who he reminded me of, keeping the play alive the way he did.
Yeah, I think you could argue that Ben Roethlisberger is the guy that keeps plays alive as well, though I think Josh Allen has more athletic ability from a running standpoint, even than Ben Roethlisberger. But that's a good, fair comparison. And they had only rushed 3 on that play. I mean, the two things you can do to a young quarterback to really try to negate their effectiveness from the quarterback position is you can bring pressure, because sometimes they're not aware that the pressure's coming. Only you can drop 8 guys in coverage and only bring 3 pass rush. Try to step everybody in the passing lane and then hope your 3 pass rushers can get there, because he has to pull the ball down and hold it. At that time, he demonstrated some real great escapability and was able to find somebody downfield, and it was good that Charles Clay and I mean, that was the second time down near the end zone where the receivers had to keep the play alive and just keep moving and try to work themselves in a position. The first one to Zay Jones, of course, and that one Charles did a good job getting open and being in the end zone, but the ball flooded out of Josh Allen's hand, and it wasn't an easy catch by any means. And a catch that I think Charles Clay indicated he thought he should have made, but it would have been really difficult. It would have been a great catch had he made it.
Yeah,
because he had to kind of go down to the ground and kind of cradle it with his forearms underneath it. And because it was fluttering the way it was, I mean, it wasn't a spiral because of the escapability that Josh Allen. I mean, he was running to his left, throwing back to his right, so it wasn't a pretty ball at all. But they had a chance, and that's a team that's pretty resilient. Played really well. The Dolphins did against the Indianapolis Colts the previous week and lost in the last seconds, and the Bills took them to the wire. So I think it was a step forward for the Bills offense.
Yeah. I think if you're a Bills fan right now, it's you get it, you understand. We're not going anywhere, but moving forward every week is key. Although this weekend with the Jets, the Bills for the first time this year are favored in a game.
Now, I mean,
for whatever that's worth.
I think they dropped the game yesterday, didn't they? I thought they were ahead in that game, and I think I saw some scores that indicated that they dropped that game to the Titans. I think they were playing, and so they were a couple games that they've had in control, and then have let slip away. So I think that's part of it. The Bills are home, or the weather. They're calling for some a little more severe weather and a little colder, and Bills will be more used to that certainly than the New York Jets. So you just have to see what happens. But there's some questions to be answered going forward here, and they've got to make sure that they understand what personnel they have available to them, and particularly on the offensive side of the ball, and where they need to make improvements. And obviously the offensive line is still in flux, and they continue to put personnel in there to see if they can find the right collection of 5 guys that can work well together. And the receiving corps has had a vertical stretch component to it lately, and I think they've been blocking better in the running game. But that's an area that they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do there. And I suspect that roster or those spots on the roster will fluctuate a little bit here in the off season. They've got to know what they want to do going into the off season and going into the draft next year, and how they're going to improve the components that need improvement to move forward in 2019.
I thought this was an interesting stat, and it's really not all that important, but I guess it is. It could be. But Sean McDermott with the Bills, career with the Bills is 1 for 13 on challenges.
Wow.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, that challenge with the touchback yesterday, I know very little, and I'm sitting there's no way that's going to be overturned. Somebody upstairs is not giving him the right information.
Yeah, I was surprised that they threw a challenge flag there. Sometimes I think a coach uses the challenge flag opportunity to just regroup his unit, whether it's the offensive or defensive unit, and just to make sure that they have the right play call, that they're not frustrated, that they can kind of diffuse the emotion of the situation and move forward and play a clean down. And so sometimes I think they do it. Hey, it's close, and I can't even, I can imagine the scenario as well where the coaches say, hey, I don't think this is going to be overturned, but let's throw the flag, let's regroup, let's see if we can't come up with a good play if in fact this call stands. So I think that's probably a conversation that they've had before. I don't know if that was the conversation yesterday, but I could see that being a credible scenario to what might happen between conversations with the coaching staff.
And one more, I want to ask you, there's never a question about LaShawn McCoy, who's had a tough year, but his effort is always there. It clearly bothers him. And I imagine the same way with Kelvin Benjamin, but Benjamin still gets questioned when it comes to that extra effort. Has he improved? Because there were a couple times yesterday where I kind of felt maybe it wasn't there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's hard unless you're watching a guy every single play. But I don't think it's effort. It's execution. It's everybody, and that's what's so great about the NFL game. Because you've got 11 guys that have to work in concert with each other, and when everybody's in sync, it puts together a beautiful puzzle. And when there's one piece that doesn't fit quite right, or the guy doesn't execute the way that the play is intended to be executed, or the receiver doesn't run exactly where he's supposed to run, and I mean that's what happened. It seemed like a miscommunication with the Zay Jones in the end zone when Josh Allen threw a little bit behind him. I mean, so is that a miscommunication? Everybody's got to be in such lockstep to execute the play properly, and I've heard people say before too, Kelvin Benjamin he's a strider. He's kind of a loper when he runs because he's such a big guy, and he's not a quick-footed guy. So sometimes it may not look like he's running as hard as he can, but in fact he's covering a lot of ground. And I don't think by any means it's effort on anybody's part. I think he's suffered some frustration because he deals with young quarterbacks, and it certainly hasn't had the season that he thinks he's capable of having, or that is really helped the Bills offense be productive. But that's just,
he certainly made the right decision by going off Twitter, and I'm just staying clear of Twitter, and I don't blame him. The other thing is, I got to tell you, Josh Allen, and we'll let you go. Josh Allen has done a great job of really learning how to be able to run. I mean, he really didn't get touched at all yesterday when he was running, and he's got a great sense. Well, with the exception of the last two times that he was sacked, he has a really good sense of what's coming around him and when that defense is getting to him. I'm really impressed with that.
Yeah, has a good feel, and seems like he slid a couple times in the pocket and gave himself an opportunity to throw the ball down the field. And that's what you want to do as a quarterback. You want to extend it down but throw it down the field. But, he avoided a lot of hits yesterday, which is a good thing when you're playing the quarterback position.
Mark Kelso, as always, we appreciate it. We'll talk again next week. Thanks so much.
Yes, you're welcome. Have a great day.
You too.
Albany.
All right. Thanks so much. Okay. That's all right. That's kind of like that commercial. It's like, hey, Houston. Oh, you're in St. Louis. Hold on. I want to talk about Kid Rock. He and Joey Behar have gotten into it. Did you see that?
What?
And Kid Rock had to apologize, from what I understand. We'll play audio for you. Next to WIBX. Kid Rock was on Fox and Friends, ranting about everyone being so sensitive and said we should all just love each other, except for Joey Behar, and this is what he had to say.
The division in the country right now, that it's so hard for people just to get past that we can disagree and still be cordial with one another, and just talk about things without going for each other's throats and protesting everything. And God forbid you say something a little bit wrong, you're racist, homophobic, Islamophobic, this, that, and the other. People need to calm down, get a little less politically correct. And I would say, love everybody except, I'd say, screw that Joey Behar bitch. Everybody.
Well, there were a lot of applause there, but Fox immediately apologized for.
That was on Fox?
Yeah, it was on Fox and Friends.
Wow.
For calling Joey Behar a bitch.
Behar. So they apologized. But
they apologized. I don't know that he did.
Okay.
Joey Behar responded to Kid Rock calling her that by telling him to come on her show and Let's hash it out, she says.
Did he say to call me a bitch?
Yes. And you come for one of us. You came for all of us, Kid Rock.
So all I can say is this and these is will be happy to have you on the show and have a beer. Let me tell you this, though.
Oh, you might as well take advantage of him, right?
Good for them.
And I wanted to introduce, not always do we get our interns that come in early. Grab a hold of that microphone. Oops, I'm going to talk to her. Come up, lean right in, get right in there. Tell us your name. You're a new intern.
I'm Ariana Gonzalez.
Ariana Gonzalez. Where are you from?
Whitesboro High School. I'm a senior.
And what do you want to do?
Something in communications. I'm not sure yet, though.
I can promise you by the time you're done here, you'll be like, I don't want to do that.
Great. Thanks for telling her that.
Sorry. All right, what are you going to have her do now? Because we like to have you work. It's important to do stuff. Because when you're sitting around, and have you done any of these internships where you go somewhere and you're just sitting on the couch waiting for something to do?
Yeah.
That's boring.
We want to put you to work.
We put you to work.
Will. Because we're really short-staffed, so we can use the help.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Shoveling? You like to shovel?
I don't mind.
You'll do it.
We won't have you
We
shovel.
are kidding. We'll have you do real stuff and hopefully learn some stuff, all right?
Okay.
So welcome aboard. You're going to love this place.
Okay.
Wink, wink.
Great.
All right. Anything else we have to get to? I think we're pretty much done here for the day.
We will check our website throughout the day. We'll be posting stories on this Syracuse Diocese story as it becomes available to
The
us.
Syracuse Diocese website is officially down right now, so I'm not sure you're going to be able to get to it anytime soon, but we'll keep an eye on it. We'll report it as soon as it comes out.